Hi everyone, Fiona from Lavender Blue, and in this video we're going to make our Traveller's Notebook hardcover for our little notebooks. So I've got one of them here, my January notebook, and I'll be bringing out one every month. You've probably seen, if you've seen my previous videos, you would know that. So I've got the January and February one out, and so what we're going to do is make a cover to put our little notebooks in when we've completed them. So the cover that I'm going to make, it will hold four notebooks. So if you're collecting them all, you'll just need to make 3 of these covers if you want to keep them in. So because this one will take you up to April, January, February, March, April. So now what you need is some chipboard if you have it to make your hard cover. I didn't have any chipboard, so I've got some just some corrugated cardboard here that I had left over for some packaging, so that's really good too. And I'm going to be covering it with cardstock, and it'll sort of have a couple of layers, so that'll actually make it quite sturdy when it's finished. So some of that if you have it. You can also make it a softish cover. I mean, if you just have ordinary cardstock, you can use that too, and it'll still work out sturdy enough in the end, but I just wanted mine to be a bit more of a harder cover. And then you just need your cardstock, and I'm covering mine initially with black cardstock, so any colour that you want. And then you'll need your decorative cardstock or papers that you want to cover it with on the outside. So just anything that you want to use. So, okay, so the measurements, I've made the covers slightly bigger than the notebooks, because once you get them in there and they fill up, you know, you need room for that. And also at the top and bottom we need room to put our little eyelets. In the spine we need to put our little eyelet holes for threading the elastic thread. So I've made that a little bit taller than the notebook as well. So I'll just tell you the measurements. So you need 2 pieces of card measuring, they're 4 3/4 inches by 8 3/4 inches. So that's the front and back. 4 3/4 by 8 3/4. And then the spine piece I have made 1 3/4 by 8 3/4. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just line these up, and you want to leave a little bit of a gap between the spine and the front and back cover, just for the ease of folding, and also so that your paper doesn't rip in that spine area there. So a good rule of thumb for that is you could actually get another piece of the board that you're using and put it in between and use the thickness of that, but it might be a bit too thick with mine. So a ruler is a good one. But you know, you can do it that way, but I'm just going to eyeball it. I just want to move my cardstock out the way because I'm going to be using some tape. Okay. Just like that. And I'll line it up with the lines on my cutting mat. Make sure I've got it straight. Straight. I think it's a little bit difficult with this corrugated cardboard because of the edges being a bit wavy. Kind of plays tricks on your eyes, but that looks pretty straight to me. And I've got some craft tape here. So this is just a, well, it's really a packing tape, and I got it in Officeworks here in Australia, and I think they call it craft tape. So it's like a craft paper tape. So I'm gonna just bind the spine to the covers with this tape initially, just to give it a bit of extra strength. If you don't want to do this step, you don't have to. You can glue your card, your board straight onto your cardstock if you want to, but I just like to do this step just to make sure I give this a bit of extra strength. That's that one. And I mean, it doesn't matter how straight this is because it will be covered up anyway, just as long as your cardboard, your board is straight. And that look just a little bit, that might have to go in a little bit there. Who am I saying it needs to be straight and mine's not? That should be fine. If you don't have this tape, use some masking tape. It's just as good. Yeah, any sort of packaging tape. Probably not the shiny one because you might have problems with your cardstock sticking to the shiny one. Probably even better if you have some kind of cloth tape, like bookbinding tape. You could also do this by gluing down fabric if you can't find any tape. Okay, so that's going to fold nicely there. Let's do our other one. Okay. There. Straight down. And once again it moved. I don't know why it's doing that. Put that. There. And wrap it around. That off. And there we go. So that's that bit. That's good. And now with my cardstock, I've got 2 sheets of 12 by 12 cardstock. You could also do it with 8.5 by 11 probably, but you'll need 2 sheets because we want to completely cover this. And 1 sheet is okay as far as the height goes to wrap around, but when we get to the sides, there's not enough there, so I'm going to have to join 2 sheets together. So I'm going to use I'm just going to use some double-sided tape, and I only have, I think this is 1/4 of an inch, no, I think this one's 1/2 an inch, so I'm just using this one. You can just tear it off usually. Just going to cut those ends off even. I'm going to use double-sided tape, and then I'm going to use glue also, just to make sure that sticks together really well, because we don't want that coming apart when we cover our book cover. I'll just get my little tool here and pull off that top. You see? Pull off this top one, if I can get it. And then I'm going to get my glue, and I've just got a clear Elmer's glue. You can use PVA glue, whatever you have. And I just want to run a strip of that down there as well. So then I'll bring in my other piece and line that up. Like that. Just get my, if I can find it, I'm just looking for my bone folder so I can, where's that gone? Always losing things. I'll find it in a minute. But if you've got a bone folder, just push down on that fold really well. Well, not fold, that join. Make sure it's not going to come apart. And with the, when you use the double-sided tape and the glue, it's usually a really good, it's usually very strong, so you shouldn't have any problems with that. And on the other side as well. Just doing that. Okay, so now I'll get my cover. And I will, I'm going to leave, you know, about 1 inch all the way around. And then I'm just going to cut it down. So I'll just get my pencil. Just cut it down here. Actually, to be honest, I probably don't need to cut it down. I could just use the whole, just make the, make it a little bit bigger all the way around and use this whole area, and I'll just cut it off at the end, this end roughly the same, so about there. Get my ruler and my craft knife. Line it up. And I'm just going with the edge here from the join, just eyeballing the distance there, because this will be stuck to the inside anyway, and it will be covered up, so it's just slightly off. Don't worry about that too much. Oh, so that's done. That's it. And we can probably save this piece for the inside of the cover. So all we need to do is put some glue on our cover. Actually, I don't want to use glue. I'm just wondering whether... I think on the spine I want to use some double-sided tape and some glue, just to make sure it's stuck down nicely. So I'll put this on here. And then I'm going to go around the edges with this, the edges of the cover. So that it sticks down well. One side. And the other side. And then I'm just going to put a couple of pieces in the middle as well, because the reason I'm using the tape is, well, I don't want to use too much glue. I don't want to just put glue all over, because then you get the buckling. You get a lot more buckling with glue, so I want to use the tape as well. Rip that off. And that should do. Okay, so I can't find my bone folder, so I'm just going to go over these with my little ruler here. Make sure they're tuck down nicely. Now I'm going to cut off the edges. Yeah, that looks about right. And peel off my tape. Okay, let's see if I can do this. I might need to use my, sometimes it's easier with a craft knife or some kind of pointy tool than trying to get it off with your fingers. And this one, and you don't have to use the tape if you don't want to. I know it's a little bit of a pain peeling it all off, but that's very good. The other side. This is why it's got to be stuck down properly, because otherwise it doesn't, the top layer doesn't lift off. Right. There we go. Okay, so I'll put a little bit of glue here and there on the edges. A little bit down here. Now I'm going to roughly get it in the center and glue that down. Just sticking down the spine first. And then to glue the rest of it down. So you can see why I've reinforced the spine bit here, because it does take a lot of wear and tear. Make sure that's all folding properly. Yep, that's good. And you can go on this side and also go in with your bone folder or ruler or whatever you have. Now what I'm going to do is cut the corners, which is just cut to almost to the corner at an angle, but not right into the corner, because you'll end up with a hole there when you fold it. Just there on an angle and then back from the other direction. Do that with all my corners. There we go. And now to stick these sides on, I'm just going to put a little bit of tape on each edge here, just up against the cover. To make sure it gives it a bit of extra hold there. Just like that. This one. And that's it. Cut the edges off. Make sure they're glued down nicely. One's a bit crooked, never mind. And then what you also want to do is you want to get these moving. So you want to make a fold. Sometimes a ruler really helps. Just press it up against like this to make that fold start folding over. I'm just going to do that. And if you've made covers before for journals or mini albums, you'll know all about this kind of thing. Okay, so I'll take my tape off and put some glue on. Probably could have put some tape on the very edge as well, but I think it'll be fine. Put my glue on. Wipe that off, the extra glue. Glue that down. If your cardstock is really thick, it's a good idea to cut before you glue the top and bottom down, just to cut a slit here and here as well, so that it will fold a bit easier. But my cardstock's not that thick, so I think that is going to be okay to fold in here. Just getting all that straight. And the last one here. And that edge needs cutting off there. Just wipe off the excess glue, and then I'll go in like this. On my folds again, and just make sure it's all stuck down. Might have to wait for the glue to dry a little bit. Okay, and this edge, fold that under there. Okay, that's folding really well. Yep, that's good. make sure it's nice and even. That is the base of your cover. Might put that little strip there at the back where we've joined the two together. Now, let's just check it's going to fit nicely. Yep, it's going to fit nicely in there. Okay, so the next thing, we don't want to make our holes yet because I'll be covering this again. Next thing is to choose what papers you want to go in your spot. You can put another strip of paper if you want to, just along the spine like this, and also on the inside, and that gives it a bit of extra support plus a little bit of decoration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get my papers ready. I've got this leftover piece of cardstock, just thinking that I could probably just glue these down before I do that actually. Yep, so I'm going to go ahead and measure these pieces of cardstock and just glue them down inside. Just cut them slightly smaller and glue them to the inside covers, and then I'll be back for the next step. Okay, so I'm back and I've cut out some pieces of paper that I wanted to use for the front and back cover. So these are going on the outside and I've just cut them slightly smaller, and then I've cut two pieces the same side for the insides. But before I put the inside, the black pieces down, I'm going to just put this piece in the center. It's just the other side of that pattern paper, so it coordinates. And it's just slightly wider than the spine, but you can make it wider if you want to. It's just this strip was the only size strip that I had left, so just wondering, that one's a little bit wider. I might be able to join these two together, make a wider strip. Because it probably is better if it's a little bit wider. Let's see. Okay, so I might just, how wide is this one? This one is about 3 1/4 inches wide. You could probably go 4 inches wide if you wanted to. I'll just cut this one down. I just didn't want to waste my paper, so I wanted to try and use what I had, but it's probably not going to be quite wide enough. So the height, I'll just join these together. So obviously just the height of your book by, well, probably about 3 1/2 inches wide would be a good size mine's 3 1/4. It'll probably still work. So this is just some 12 by 12 cardstock that I had. I've got piles and piles of it that I need to use up, so I thought I would start using some. I'm not too worried about that edge because the edges are going to be covered up by the black paper, but just need to cut this to the height. So I need to cut it about, well, you know, slightly shorter than the height. You don't want it hanging over the edge. About here. And this edge doesn't look straight to me, so let's see. No, it's not straight, is it? Let's cut that. There we go. So I've already put some double-sided tape on my spine here. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. Down in the little in the little gap there, and then I'll just center this. About right. Then before it dries, I'll need to get into these little gaps before it dries completely, to make sure it's going to fold okay. Puckering up a little bit there. Stretch that out. Like that, and then I'll just glue down my black paper. I'm just going to cover up those edges. Like that. I could use double-sided tape, but I'm just going to be a bit quicker if I just use the glue. And make sure that's straight. And the other side. Get rid of the excess glue. Make sure that's pressed down really well. Okay, so that's our inside covers done. It takes a little while to dry. Get rid of some of my rubbish here. And then I will glue my my front and back covers on. So you can see that even though I didn't use bookboard or chipboard, it's turned out quite sturdy because we've layered it up. So yeah, if you have any chipboard, just use an old maybe a corrugated cardboard box like I have, or even a cereal box, something like that. So now we can just glue these on, and I'm going to leave my spine just black like that, but you can decorate it up however you want to. This. And this glue is still just a little bit wet inside, so I've got to be careful with that. Just bending it to make sure it's nice and flexible. And then we'll glue the other one on. Okay, so that's our Traveller's Notebook cover so far. And now the next step is to put our holes in. I'm going to put 3 holes at the top and 3 at the bottom. And then I'm going to poke a hole in the center for our closure. So I'm just going to get my notebook, and just to make a pencil mark where these holes need to be, because if you put your holes too far in, like if you put this too far down, it's going to be a little bit tight to fit around your book, the elastic, so you need to make sure you have them sort of level with your book. So I'm just going to put a little hole in the center. I'm sort of eyeballing where the center is here, at that height, and then another one down here. So that's roughly where I need my holes, and that would probably be only about 1/4 of an inch. Yeah, 1/4 of an inch in from the very top and bottom, and that should work okay. So one there, and one there. Same on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and make holes in these with my crocodile and my eyelets, and then I'm just going to poke a hole in the center just with my awl, my little pokey tool, because I don't have a crocodile. If you have the big bite, it will be able to reach into the middle here, but mine can't reach into the middle, so I will poke the hole with this one. So I'm going to do all that and I'll be back again. Okay, so now that I've got my holes in my spine, I've got 3 here, 3 here, and I've got one in the middle. Just going to thread the elastic. So I've got a piece which is roughly 4 to 5 sizes the height of this cover. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just to be safe. So I'm going to start I'm going to start by threading through the centre hole, one end through the bottom and then one end through the top. So we've got, I hope I can get this right. So we've got it threaded through the top and the bottom the same length, like this. And then I'm going to take my bottom one and take it to the adjacent hole next to it and pull it through the first hole. And then, just let me think, this gets a little bit confusing. Then I'm going to just a second. Then I'm going to take this one and poke it through the next hole, the third hole. That's the other end. So I've got this one through the first, this one through the third. And then what I need to do is take this one back up to the top. Take this one back down to the bottom. So we've got our, so far we've got our 3. So far we've got our 3, and I'll just loosen that a bit so I've got a bit more here. And we've got one at the top corner here and one end at the bottom here. So if you go to the outside, I've got one going across like that and one going across at the bottom there. So what you need to do now is going from the outside, put your ends back in through the centre one, so then you end up with your threads going like this. So put this one back in through the centre, if you can get it through. I might just use this. Through there. And then we just get the bottom one and do the same thing. Just hoping I've got enough thread here. So poke it through the centre one. I know, I think there's quite a few different ways of doing this, but this is the way that I've found seems to work okay. So if you remember, we started in the centre, threading the 2 to the outside, then we came around to opposite adjacent holes, and then we're going back in through the centre hole. So then when we come back inside, we pull them fairly tight, and we're going to tie this off, and that's going to be our 4th string, so we can fit four notebooks in here. So if I just get my notebook again, I just want to, so they're going to slide under here like this. Make sure that's going to, yep, it's going to fit nicely like that. And you don't want them too tight but not too loose either. I just want to check. One, two, three, four. Yep. So I'm going to pull them reasonably tight. Not enough that it's bending the spine, but it's just nice and taut there. So like this. This one. Okay, yep, that feels good. And then I'll make a knot to tie this one. Just a secure granny knot should do it. I can hold that. I might tie it a bit further down because it's going to be sort of in the way of our other knot when we do our closure. Hold that tight. I don't really hold that as tight as I wanted to. Pull it tight and make your knot. And yep, that's pretty good. So even though they look like they're crossing over, once you get your notebooks in there, they will sort of sit in there all snugly. You won't really notice that. I tied that one off, so I'll just cut that off. And then what you want to do is get another piece, wrap it around here roughly. That's going to be too small. So this is going to be our closure. So I'm just going to wrap that around loosely, leave some ends. So it's easy to work with, and then cut that off. And so for the closure, you'll need to fold this in half and thread through the little loop through the center hole. So my center hole obviously isn't as big as the other holes, so try and make it as big as you can so that you can fit that through. Again, you might need to use something to help you out a bit. Oops. Let's try again. And push that through. Hopefully without breaking it or poking a hole in it. I don't think my hole's quite big enough, so I'll just make that a bit bigger. You probably could use some slightly thinner elastic. This is just all that I had. I've either got this or I've got the really thin hat elastic. I couldn't really find anything in between, so that's all I could get. But it is nice and strong, this elastic. So that's going to go through this time. I'll pull that through, and then I just want to test how tight that needs to be, because it's just going to come around and close like this, like your ordinary traveller's notebook. And so again, you don't want it too tight, because when you've got all your notebooks in, it's going to open up like this. About there, so I think that seems about right. Okay, so I'll just grab hold of my ends. And then again, I'm just going to tie some double knots. And just make sure your knots are big enough that they're not going to go through the hole. And with this size elastic, I don't think that's going to happen, so it should be fine. So that's nice and tight. Yep. And I'll cut those off. So it looks a little bit messy inside, but once you've got all your notebooks in, you're not really going to notice that. Okay, so that's our little traveller's notebook cover that we can put our little notebooks into. I'll just put this one in, and unfortunately I don't have the other one with me right now. Just put this one in here and make sure, show you what it's going to look like. Yep. That's great. And then just close it up like this. And there you have it. Our traveller's notebook cover for our little notebooks, or you know, any traveller's notebooks that you might have. So that's it for this video. I hope that my instructions were okay and you could follow along. If you do make your own cover for the little notebooks, please tag me and let me know so I can see what you've made. And thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.